Deceit, cover-ups, a botched investigation. 3 words that perfectly define one of the most disturbing, heartbreaking, and controversial cases in modern American true crime. The mysterious death of Amanda Wienckowski. It's the kind of story that feels ripped from the darkest corner of a true crime documentary. A young woman found naked, frozen, and upside down inside a trash can in the middle of a Buffalo winter. And yet, authorities claimed it was an accident. But was it? What really happened to Amanda? How did a bright, beautiful 20-year-old woman with dreams of becoming a police officer end up discarded like garbage, left to freeze in a New York alley? This is not just the story of a crime. It's a story of betrayal, systemic failure, and a mother's relentless fight for truth. This is the tragic case of Amanda Wienckowski. Welcome to True Crime Archives channel, where we dive deep into unsolved mysteries, cold cases, and stories that the system tried to forget. If you're new here, I'm your host, and every week we uncover the truth behind some of the world's most haunting crimes. If you love real investigative storytelling, subscribe now. It's free, and it helps us keep exploring the darkest corners of human behavior. Now let's go back to where Amanda's story began. Before the nightmare. Amanda Wienckowski, or Manda, as everyone lovingly called her, was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. She was vibrant, full of life, and filled with ambition. A dancer, swimmer, acrobat, and at one point, she was even crowned Miss Teen Buffalo. Amanda wasn't just another small-town girl. She was driven. Her dream, to become a police officer, to serve, protect, and change the world for the better. After graduating from Niagara-Wheatfield High School, she enrolled in the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, BOCES program, to earn her diploma in law enforcement. She was one step away from her dream. But sometimes, the world doesn't reward ambition. Sometimes, it crushes it. According to her mother, Leslie, it was during this period that Amanda met the wrong people, individuals who would eventually lead her down a dark and dangerous path. A path filled with addiction, exploitation, and manipulation. It was as if Amanda had been pulled into a deep black hole, a world where innocence fades fast, and trust can get you killed. At one point, Amanda told her mother something haunting. "It feels like the devil's after me." It's a chilling statement, one that reveals the invisible terror she felt, that sensation of running from something unseen, yet constantly feeling its breath on the back of your neck. A shadow you can't outrun. Leslie watched helplessly as her daughter's once bright future dimmed into the chaos of substance abuse. From a hopeful student to a trapped addict, it was a transformation that broke her mother's heart. But Amanda wasn't weak. She fought hard to reclaim her life. Leslie refused to give up on her daughter. Despite financial struggles, she took Amanda to clinics, supported her recovery efforts, and tried to help her break free from the addiction that had its claws deep in her. But addiction is a cunning enemy. Every time Amanda tried to escape, it pulled her back in. At her lowest point, Amanda was forced into sex work to support her addiction, exchanging her body for substances that would keep her demons at bay. She hated it. She wanted out. But when you're trapped in that vicious cycle, quitting feels impossible. Amanda once told her mother that she felt as though her body would turn inside out if she didn't keep using. It's a horrifying image, a testament to the physical and psychological torment of addiction. During this time, Amanda had a so-called manager, a man named Adam Patterson. He wasn't a friend, he wasn't family, but he had control. Adam was much older than Amanda, old enough to be her father, and he lived with her on the Tuscarora Indian Reservation in Lewiston, drove her to meet clients, and handled the logistics of her dangerous double life. He knew exactly what Amanda wanted and what she'd do to get it. And he knew the men who could supply it. Amanda was stuck in a cycle of dependency, and Adam was the one behind the wheel. He drove her to the edge of danger, and one day, to her death. By December 2008, Amanda was trying to piece her life together. She was enrolled in Niagara County Community College, studying criminal justice, and she also worked part-time at a local bar called Cocktail Bob's. On December 5th, 2008, she was working her shift when Adam Patterson called. He told her he'd just spoken to a man, a new client, who went by the name Justice. But Justice wasn't his real name. His real name was Antoine Garner, and he was bad news. Garner was 22 years old, built like a tank, violent and known for his criminal record and explosive temper. Yet despite his reputation, Amanda agreed to go. Adam would drive her there. She asked a friend to cover her shift, left the bar and got into Adam's car, unaware that she was heading into a trap she'd never escape. Adam drove Amanda to Antoine's home on Buffalo's east side, a rough neighborhood with a reputation for drugs and violence. When they arrived, Amanda got out and went inside while Adam stayed in the car. That, at least, is his version of the story. According to Adam, he waited for nearly an hour before Amanda called him, saying she would be a while and that he shouldn't wait. So he left. He drove away, leaving Amanda behind, in the hands of a violent man, and expected her to somehow make her way home, but Amanda never made it back. Amanda's disappearance didn't go unnoticed. Her mother, Leslie, called her regularly, and when Amanda didn't answer for 2 days, panic set in. Amanda might have struggled, but she always called back. This silence was different. It was ominous. December 7th, Leslie reported her daughter missing. The police began their investigation, but as we'll later see, they would handle this case with shocking negligence. Their first step was to question Adam Patterson. He repeated his story. He dropped Amanda off. She said she'd be late, and he went home around 8:30 p.m. But his story didn't line up. If Amanda told him not to wait, why hadn't he checked in later? Why didn't he call her or make sure she was safe? And more importantly, why was he associating with known criminals and sending her into dangerous situations? The police, however, didn't seem too interested in pressing him. Instead, they turned their attention to Antoine Garner. When questioned, Antoine's version was completely different. He admitted that Amanda and Adam had come to his house, but claimed she only stayed for 10 or 15 minutes before leaving with Adam. When asked whether he and Amanda had engaged in any physical activity, Antoine denied it outright. He said she came by, they talked, he gave her what she came for, and then she left. Now, anyone familiar with this world knows no one gives something for nothing. So why would Garner, a man with a history of violence and manipulation, suddenly turn into a generous saint? The truth? He was lying, but the police didn't push hard enough. 2 suspects, 2 stories, 0 consistency, and somehow the investigation stalled. Meanwhile, Leslie and Amanda's friends were left to search on their own, driving through rough neighborhoods, checking shelters, and calling hospitals, hoping for any sign of Amanda. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into a month, and still nothing. Then, on a freezing January morning in 2009, police received an anonymous call. The caller's voice was calm but urgent. They said that there was something unusual in a garbage bin behind a church parking lot on Buffalo's east side. When officers arrived, they immediately noticed something unsettling. The trash bin was located just around the corner from Antoine Garner's house, the very place Amanda was last seen alive. Inside that bin was a horror they'd never forget. It was bitterly cold, temperatures below freezing. The trash bin was half buried in snow, its lid sealed by ice. When the officers pried it open, the smell of decay and chemicals filled the air. Inside was the body of a young woman, naked, upside down, and frozen solid. Her long hair had been shaved off completely, and bruises covered her face and neck. There were ligature marks, signs of compression, possibly strangulation. The only clue to her identity was a small butterfly tattoo on her neck. Amanda had a butterfly tattoo. That was the moment police realized the horrific truth. The body in the bin was Amanda Wienckowski. It fell upon Amanda's brother to formally identify her body. When he saw his sister's lifeless form, his world shattered. He called their mother, screaming, crying, unable to breathe through the shock. Leslie's worst nightmare had come true. After weeks of holding on to hope, she now faced the unthinkable. Her daughter had been murdered and discarded like trash. But the horror was only beginning, because the real crime was yet to unfold. Not on the streets, but in the morgue and police department that handled her case. The police immediately noted the body's location, near Antoine Garner's residence. To anyone else, it would have seemed obvious. This was a clear lead, but when investigators questioned Antoine again, he arrogantly denied involvement, claiming, "If I killed her, I wouldn't be stupid enough to dump her body right near my house." That statement alone cold, manipulative, and almost taunting, should have raised red flags, but instead seemed content to accept it. Amanda's body was sent for an autopsy, and what should have been the beginning of justice became the foundation of a massive cover-up. The first autopsy concluded that Amanda's death was the result of an accidental overdose. Yes, you heard that right. Despite her being found naked, shaved, upside down, and covered in bruises, the medical examiner ruled it an accident. The report made no mention of the lacerations or bruising around her neck and face. No consideration for the unnatural position of her body. No questions about how she ended up inside a garbage can. Instead, the conclusion was clean, convenient, and quick. Accidental death by overdose. According to this version, Amanda had supposedly taken drugs, shaved her own head, stripped naked, and somehow crawled upside down into a garbage bin in the middle of a New York winter. It was a narrative so absurd, it bordered on insulting. But this was the official line, and as long as her death was ruled accidental, there would be no homicide investigation, no trial, and no justice. What happened to Amanda Wienckowski wasn't just a tragedy, it was a systemic failure. A vulnerable young woman was killed, and instead of uncovering the truth, those in power buried it under paperwork, negligence, and deceit. But Amanda's story doesn't end here, because her mother Leslie refused to stay silent. She would fight for years to expose what really happened, and the deeper she dug, the darker the truth became. 3 years after Amanda's frozen body was pulled from that garbage bin, her family still had no peace. The official narrative was clear: accidental overdose. But her mother, Leslie, knew that was a lie. Too many questions, too many wounds, too much deceit. In November 2011, Amanda's family's attorney, Stephen Cohen, demanded the truth. He filed for a second autopsy, convinced that the original medical report was either incompetent or corrupted. 2 independent forensic pathologists were brought in. Amanda's body was exhumed and examined again. What they discovered wasn't just disturbing, it was horrifying. Amanda had been strangled to death. The marks around her neck told a story, the story of hands pressing down, squeezing, cutting off her breath until her heart stopped. Whoever killed her had used their bare hands to take her life. This wasn't an overdose. This was murder, and it didn't stop there. The forensic pathologists found defensive wounds on Amanda's body, small but undeniable signs that she had fought back. Scratches, bruises, and trauma consistent with a violent struggle. She had tried to survive. Her body also revealed something deeply sinister. Her head had been shaved, and her body completely disrobed before being placed upside down in the garbage bin. These weren't random details. They were signatures of humiliation, often seen in cases of rage murders or sexualized homicides. And then there was the most chilling discovery of all. Amanda's tongue was missing. It had been removed, not by decomposition, not by accident. Someone had taken it. Forensic examiners concluded that this was not post-mortem decay. The tissue was cleanly absent, indicating mutilation after death. It was almost ritualistic, the kind of detail that only deepened the horror and the mystery. Attorney Stephen Cohen wasn't satisfied with the autopsy alone. He ordered an independent toxicology test, determined to debunk the official claim of accidental overdose. The results spoke volumes. Yes, Amanda had traces of substances in her system, consistent with her history of addiction. But the levels were far too low to cause an overdose. There was no lethal concentration, no evidence that she had taken enough to kill herself. What the toxicologists did find, however, was something far more alarming: a high concentration of a date rape drug, commonly known as a roofie. This single piece of evidence shifted the entire narrative. Amanda hadn't overdosed. She'd been drugged, incapacitated, possibly to prevent her from resisting her attacker. And then came another bombshell: DNA evidence. 4 separate DNA profiles were identified on Amanda's body. 2 belonged to unidentified females, but the other 2 were unmistakable. One was Adam Patterson, Amanda's manager. The other was Antoine Garner, the last man known to have seen her alive. Their genetic fingerprints were found on her, woven into the very fabric of the evidence. This wasn't speculation. This was science. Their presence on Amanda's body could not be explained away. The female DNA, still unidentified, added another layer of confusion, or perhaps another cover-up. Was someone else involved? Could a third party have helped dispose of the body? Or were they part of the scene before Amanda's death? No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain: Amanda had not died alone. And yet, with all this evidence, no one was charged. After the shocking findings of the second autopsy, the district attorney's office authorized a third independent review. It was conducted by Dr. Scott LaPointe in early 2012, supposedly to bring clarity once and for all. But clarity never came. Dr. LaPointe's official report concluded Amanda's cause of death as undetermined. Not homicide, not accident, just unknown. It was the perfect bureaucratic solution, vague enough to avoid responsibility, ambiguous enough to prevent justice. Even reports of a fourth autopsy surfaced later, but those results too came back as undetermined. Despite 3, possibly 4, separate examinations, Amanda's death certificate remained unchanged: accidental overdose. The same falsehood that had silenced justice from day one. Leslie refused to accept it. In September 2021, nearly 13 years after Amanda's murder, she filed a lawsuit against Erie County and its chief medical examiner. Her goal was simple: to correct the death certificate and officially acknowledge what everyone already knew: Amanda was murdered. She asked for only 3 possibilities: that the cause of death be changed to homicide, undetermined, or that the case be reopened with new evidence. But even that was denied. The court dismissed her lawsuit, claiming it fell outside the statute of limitations. It was a cruel technicality, one that valued paperwork over human life. Imagine fighting for more than a decade, armed with forensic proof, DNA, and eyewitness contradictions, only to be told it's too late. For Leslie, it wasn't just another loss in court, it was another betrayal. Let's rewind to the man at the center of this tragedy, Antoine Garner. From the beginning, Garner had been suspicious. He was the last person to see Amanda alive. His DNA was on her body. The location of the garbage bin, just steps from his home, was no coincidence. But because the first autopsy labeled Amanda's death an accident, the police had no reason to pursue a homicide investigation. And just like that, Antoine Garner was no longer a suspect. It was as if he had been granted a silent immunity, shielded by the system's incompetence. But let's look closer at who this man really was. Garner's criminal record reads like the profile of a predator. He was a known violent offender. He dealt with drugs, intimidation, and abuse. He was the kind of man who thrived in chaos, who used his physical strength and reputation to control and destroy. And his behavior after Amanda's death only reinforced that image. In 2013, 5 years after Amanda vanished, Antoine Garner was arrested for multiple violent crimes, including assault, strangulation, and attempted murder of another sex worker. The similarities were unsettlingly familiar. During that attack, Garner reportedly choked the woman with his bare hands, the same method suspected in Amanda's murder. Between December 2008 and January 2009, the exact time frame of Amanda's disappearance and death, Garner committed several felonies. Coincidence? Hardly. He had also been charged with armed robbery and sexual assault, including crimes involving a minor. In June 2011, he hired another sex worker, and once again, choked her nearly to death. It was his signature, his pattern, his method. Yet despite all of this, despite the mounting evidence, Garner was never charged in Amanda's case. Let's connect the dots. Amanda was found dead mere yards from Antoine's home. His DNA was found on her body. He had a history of strangulation, assault, and violence against women. He lied about not being physically intimate with Amanda, and his crimes escalated immediately after her death. These aren't coincidences, they're connections, each one a piece of a puzzle that law enforcement refused to assemble. To anyone with investigative sense, this should have been an open and shut homicide. Instead, it was swept under the rug, leaving Amanda's family to fight an uphill battle against indifference. Eventually, Antoine Garner was sentenced to 18 years in prison, not for Amanda's murder, but for strangulation, assault, and 2 counts of robbery from his later crimes. He is still behind bars today, but the irony is cruel. He's serving time for crimes identical to Amanda's death, while the murder that started it all remains officially unsolved. As of today, Garner has never been formally charged in Amanda's case. He continues to deny involvement, claiming that someone set him up. But no matter how much he denies it, the evidence, the pattern, the timing, the brutality, all point toward one truth. Amanda Wienckowski was murdered, and Antoine Garner was almost certainly the killer. It has now been 16 years since Amanda left her shift at Cocktail Bob's with Adam Patterson. 16 years since she entered Antoine's house. 16 years since her frozen, violated body was found upside down in a garbage bin, less than a block away from where he lived. And 16 years since the system turned its back on her. Despite the DNA evidence, the toxicology results, the autopsies, and the public pressure, no one has ever been arrested for her murder. Adam Patterson, the man who delivered Amanda to Garner that night, has never faced charges either. He claims innocence, but it's hard to ignore that he was the one who arranged the meeting, the one who drove her there, and the one who left her behind. Could he have known what was going to happen? Was he complicit? Or was he just another piece in a much darker chain of exploitation? No one knows for sure. But for Leslie, both men represent betrayal, one as the predator and the other as the enabler. Leslie has spent nearly 2 decades battling the system. She's faced rejection, dismissal, and indifference, but she's never stopped demanding justice. To her, Amanda wasn't just an addict or a statistic. She was a daughter, a dreamer, a young woman who wanted to become a police officer, a symbol of justice, now denied justice herself. Every birthday, every anniversary, Leslie continues to speak out, to share Amanda's story, to remind the world that behind every case file, person, and behind every unsolved case is a grieving family still waiting for answers. In April 2021, a new piece of information surfaced. Supporters of Amanda's case claimed that Antoine Garner had used a stun gun or taser on her before strangling her. A witness allegedly came forward, stating that Garner owned a stun gun and had bragged about using it. If proven credible, this could explain why Amanda's body showed signs of electrical trauma and why she had been incapacitated before death. This revelation breathed new life into the investigation, at least among independent advocates and online true crime communities who have followed the case closely. They believe this new lead could finally link Garner to Amanda's murder beyond reasonable doubt. But so far, law enforcement has remained silent. Activist and Erie County Sheriff candidate Miles Carter has been vocal about the injustice surrounding Amanda's case. He insists that it must be reinvestigated, either by reopening the original files or assigning a fresh team of forensic experts to review the evidence from scratch. He's not alone. A growing community of online investigators, journalists, and true crime enthusiasts has rallied behind the cause. Documentaries, podcasts, and social media campaigns continue to shine a light on Amanda's case, refusing to let it fade into cold case obscurity. Because the truth is simple, this case was never solved, it was silenced. As of 2025, there have been no major updates. Antoine Garner is still in prison, but not for Amanda, and he may be released soon. If that happens, the man suspected of strangling Amanda with his bare hands, of leaving her naked and discarded in a trash bin, could walk free, without ever facing charges for her death. Leslie fears that day, but she also holds on to hope. Hope that one piece of evidence, one witness, one confession might finally break the silence. Because every case, no matter how cold, deserves closure. Amanda's story isn't just about death. It's about how society treats victims like her. How a young woman with dreams, ambitions, and humanity can be reduced to a label. Addict, sex worker, troubled girl. And how those labels become excuses for the system to stop caring. Amanda made mistakes, yes, but she was fighting to rebuild her life. She was studying criminal justice. She wanted to serve others. She wanted to become the change she never got to see. And in the end, the system she wanted to join failed her completely. It's easy to forget that every name we mention in true crime stories once had a heartbeat. A laugh, a purpose. Amanda Wienckowski wasn't a headline. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone who mattered. The fight for her justice continues. Her mother's pain continues. And the truth, buried beneath years of lies, waits to be uncovered. This case remains one of the most haunting examples of corruption, negligence, and systemic failure in American true crime history. A young woman strangled, evidence ignored, a killer unpunished. If you believe Amanda deserves justice, don't let her story fade. Share this video, comment your thoughts, and keep her memory alive. Every voice matters, because public pressure is sometimes the only force that can reopen a cold case. Thank you for watching this episode of True Crime Archives channel, where we expose the darkness one case at a time. If you'd like to support the channel and get early access to future episodes, click join below. And check out our exclusive It's Never a Mannequin True Crime Tee. Every purchase helps us bring you more investigations like this one. But most importantly, subscribe. Stay curious and remember, do you think justice was ever truly served for Amanda Wienckowski? Or has the truth, like her, been buried under ice and lies? Until next time, stay says.